Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to explore an important figure in English literary history, Richard Tottel. On this first slide, you'll see the cover of Tottel's Miscellany from 1557, which is often called the anthology that launched the English Renaissance of poetry. We'll also look into his life and works as a tutor, printer, and publisher based in Fleet Street, London. Over the course of this presentation, I'll guide you through his contributions to literature and his lasting impact. So, let's get started and dive into the fascinating world of Richard Tottel and his influential publication. Now, moving on to slide 2, titled Legacy and Influence. Here, we see how the works and ideas we've discussed have shaped subsequent generations. The influence of these publications extends beyond their immediate context, impacting literary traditions and print culture. We also look at other publications and the role of the stationers, who were instrumental in controlling and disseminating printed material during this period. Tottel's legal publications are another key aspect, showing how legal texts were integrated into the broader literary and publishing landscape. All these points highlight the lasting significance of Tottel and his circle, illustrating how their work helped define the legacy of early modern English literature and print history. This slide underscores the importance of understanding these connections to appreciate the full scope of their influence. Today, I want to introduce you to a fascinating figure in the history of English poetry, Richard Tottel. He's often called the man behind England's first great poetry anthology, which is a significant milestone in literary history. So, who exactly was Richard Tottel? Well, he was a printer and publisher in the 16th century, and his work played a crucial role in shaping how poetry was collected and shared during that time. His anthology, known as Tottel's Miscellany, brought together a wide range of poets and their works, making poetry more accessible to a broader audience. This collection not only highlighted the talents of renowned poets, but also helped establish a tradition of anthologizing poetry that continues even today. As we explore the development of English poetry, understanding Tottel's contributions helps us see how the dissemination of poetic works was evolving and how important publishers like him were in preserving and promoting literary culture. Let's take a closer look at Richard Tottel, who is best known for his work on Tottel's Miscellany, published in 1557. This collection is considered the founding document of English Renaissance lyric poetry, marking a significant moment in literary history. His legacy extends beyond poetry. Tottel's publications included law books, legal texts, and literary anthologies, showcasing an unusually broad publishing range for his time. As a member of the Stationers' Company, the guild that controlled all English printing, Tottel was firmly embedded in the heart of the printing industry. He was licensed as a printer from 1553 and remained active as a publisher until the early 1590s, a period that covers much of the Elizabethan Golden Age. His operations were based out of the Hand and Star in Fleet Street, London, which was the hub of Tudor printing and a key location for the dissemination of literature and information. It's important to note that Tottel was not a poet himself. Rather, his genius lay in his editorial and commercial skills, selecting, compiling, and selling works that resonated with the public. He lived through the entire Elizabethan era, passing away around 1594 in London, or possibly in the surrounding counties. Born around 1528, his life spanned a transformative period in English history, and his work helped shape the literary and legal landscape of his time. Let's take a closer look at the world that made Tottel's work possible. This slide focuses on Tudor England and the print revolution, two crucial factors that shaped the literary landscape of the time. Tudor England, with its unique political and cultural environment, created a fertile ground for new ideas and voices to emerge. At the same time, the print revolution was transforming how people accessed and shared information. The invention of the printing press meant that poems, stories, and ideas could be distributed more widely and quickly than ever before. This technological leap not only increased literacy, but also allowed writers like Tottel to reach a broader audience. When we connect these points to our overall theme, it becomes clear that Tottle's work was made possible by a combination of a dynamic cultural setting and revolutionary technological advances. These factors helped to democratize literature and elevate the importance of poetry in English society. Caxton introduced printing to England in 1476, which was a significant milestone, and this was about 80 years before the publication of Tottle's Miscellany. The establishment of the Stationers' Company in 1557 played a crucial role in regulating all printing activities in London, ensuring control over what was published and maintaining standards. Printing truly transformed literature. What used to be handwritten manuscripts suddenly became printed books, making them more accessible, and private verse that was once shared only in small circles became available to the public. Fleet Street, by the way, was the heart of London's printing trade, and it was also the area where Tottle's works were produced and circulated. Tottle's publication of his Miscellany marked the emergence of poetry anthologies as a new commercial format, something quite innovative at the time. If we look at the broader context, this period was marked by the turbulent reigns of Edward VI, Mary I, and Elizabeth I, which brought significant religious upheaval and change. Interestingly, Tottel published his Miscellany in 1557, right at the end of Mary I's Catholic reign, a time when religious tensions were intense. The English Reformation had a profound impact on court culture and how literary patronage operated. During Henry VII's court, poetry was highly sophisticated and refined, often kept within the courtly circles. But with Tottel's publication, poetry became more public, reaching a wider audience beyond the court. This period also saw the arrival of the Renaissance from Italy, bringing new ideas like Petrarchanism, the sonnet form, and humanist learning, which all influenced the evolving English literary scene. So, in summary, the mid-16th century was a pivotal moment in shaping English culture. The Tudor period and the print revolution together sparked a transformation in how literature was created, shared, and consumed, setting the stage for the rich literary tradition that would follow. Let's take a closer look at Songs and Sonnets from 1557, which is considered the founding anthology of this period. This collection is significant because it marks the first major compilation of English poetry focused on love and personal expression. Moving on, we see Tottle's Miscellany, which is often referenced as the key publication that popularized these works. Published in 1557, it played a crucial role in shaping the poetry landscape of the time. The number 3 indicates that this is the third slide in our series, helping us keep track of our progress. Overall, this slide highlights the importance of these anthologies in establishing a new literary tradition that influences poets for generations to come. Today, I want to talk about Tottle's Miscellany, a really significant collection in the history of English poetry. Interestingly, the collection was nicknamed Tottle's Miscellany by later scholars, but Tottel himself never actually used this title. It's named after the publisher, Richard Tottel, who first printed it. This anthology is notable because it's the first printed collection of English poetry, and it played a huge role in shaping English verse for generations to come. It introduced the sonnet to a wide audience and helped popularize other poetic forms like blank verse and Petrarchan love poetry. The collection features works by some of the most important poets of the time, including Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, Sir Thomas Wyatt, Nicholas Grimald, and others. Altogether, there are about 310 poems, written by 4 named poets and 1 anonymous group, often referred to as uncertain authors. In terms of its publication history, Tottle's Miscellany went through at least 9 editions between 1557 and 1587, which was quite extraordinary for that era, showing its commercial success and popularity. The first edition was published on June 5, 1557, by Richard Tottel in London, specifically at the Hand and Star in Fleet Street. The full title of this first edition was quite descriptive: Songs and Sonnets written by the Right Honourable Lord Henry Howard, late Earl of Surrey, and other. This collection marked a turning point because it made lyric poetry accessible to a broader public and introduced new poetic forms that would influence English literature for centuries. Now let's turn our attention to the voices Tottel chose to bring to print. This slide highlights the poets featured in his famous miscellany. Tottle's publication was truly groundbreaking because it showcased a diverse range of poetic voices, giving a platform to both well-known and lesser-known writers of the time. These poets helped shape the literary landscape and reflect the richness of early Tudor poetry. When we look at the poets included, we see how Tottel was curating a collection that emphasized both the artistry and the cultural importance of these voices. This selection was crucial in establishing certain poets' reputations and in influencing the development of English poetry. Overall, this slide underscores how Tottel's print choices played a significant role in shaping the poetic canon we study today, connecting directly to our theme of how print transformed literary culture. This slide highlights the largest and most anonymous group of poets featured in the anthology. It includes courtiers, minor poets, and perhaps some women writers, many of whom remain unidentified today. Altogether, there are about 133 poems whose authors are uncertain. One of these contributors was a scholar and clergyman who appears only in the first 2 editions. He might have even helped Tottel edit the collection, but he's largely forgotten now. Then, we have Nicholas Grimald, the largest contributor, with 40 poems. Next is Sir Thomas Wyatt, the most prominent name on the title page. Wyatt played a crucial role in introducing the Petrarchan sonnet form to English poetry, and his poems are known for their dramatic force, though they can be a bit rougher compared to Surrey's. Surrey, whom we'll see more of shortly, invented English blank verse and set the standard for the collection with his Petrarchan sonnets. In total, the poems are distributed roughly as 40 by Surrey, 97 by Wyatt, 40 by Grimald, and about 133 by uncertain authors. Understanding who wrote these 310 poems really helps us see the diverse and sometimes mysterious origins of this fascinating collection. Let's take a closer look at the raw genius of Tudor love poetry. This is where we start to see the real creativity and emotional depth that emerged during this period. Sir Thomas Wyatt is a key figure here, and he's often considered one of the pioneers of this poetic style. In the Miscellany, a collection that showcases a variety of poetic works, Wyatt's contributions stand out. His poetry reflects not only personal feelings, but also a new approach to expressing love, more personal, more nuanced, and often more introspective. Wyatt's work marks a turning point in English poetry, blending traditional themes with innovative forms. His influence helped shape the way love was expressed in literature, making it more relatable and authentic. As we explore this slide, keep in mind how Wyatt's genius bridges the gap between the medieval traditions and the emerging Renaissance humanism. It's this blend of innovation and tradition that makes his poetry so significant in the history of Tudor literature. Wyatt's poems circulated in manuscript form even before Tottel's collection was published, with key examples found in the Egerton and Devonshire manuscripts. These manuscripts contain some of his most famous works, including They Flee From Me, Whoso List to Hunt, My Lute Awake, and Forget Not Yet, which are considered among the greatest Tudor lyrics. When Tottel compiled Wyatt's poems, he smoothed out Wyatt's often irregular rhythms. Scholars continue to debate whether this editing improved the poems or perhaps distorted their original style. Tottel's edition made Wyatt's poetry more personal, rougher, and emotionally urgent compared to Surrey's more polished style. Wyatt's tone is often bitter, ironic, or wry, reflecting a more direct and candid voice. In terms of form, Wyatt adopted the Italian Petrarchan octave and sestet structure, though his endings could be rougher than Surrey's smooth couplets. He was the first English poet to systematically adapt Italian sonnets, translating and transforming them into a new form that suited English poetic sensibilities. Wyatt's familiarity with Italian poetry came through his translations, but he also brought his own voice to these forms. His background as a courtier, diplomat, and poet at Henry VII's court shaped his work. He was twice imprisoned in the Tower of London, which added a layer of complexity to his life and poetry. One of Wyatt's most famous lines, "They flee from me that sometime did me seek with naked foot stalking in my chamber," exemplifies his dramatic directness and personal style. Overall, Wyatt became the dominant voice in Tottel's miscellany and a pivotal figure in shaping English poetry, bridging the Italian influences with his own innovative voice. Now, let's talk about the polished aristocrat who played a key role in shaping English poetry, Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey. He's often credited with inventing blank verse, which is a form of unrhymed iambic pentameter that became a cornerstone of English drama and poetry. Surrey was not just a nobleman, he was incredibly talented and innovative. His work helped elevate the status of poetry from simple entertainment to a serious art form. By developing blank verse, he provided writers with a flexible yet structured way to express complex ideas and emotions. This innovation connects to the broader theme of how individual creativity and aristocratic patronage contributed to the flowering of English literature during this period. Surrey's contributions truly mark a turning point in poetic history, and his legacy continues to influence writers even today. Let's delve into some of Surrey's poetic contributions. He created about 40 poems in his miscellany, which include sonnets, lyrics, elegies, and translations. One notable poem is So Cruel Prison, where he mourns his imprisonment in Windsor Castle alongside Prince Henry. Surrey was the son of the Duke of Norfolk and had close ties to Henry VII's court. Tragically, he was accused of treason and executed on January 19, 1547, just days before Henry VII's death. He was only 30 years old at the time. Moving to his literary achievements, his translations of Virgil's Aeneid, specifically books II and IV, are considered masterpieces of Tudor verse. They stay true to Virgil's dignity, but also stand out as their own elevated works. These translations were published after his death in 1557 by Tottel. Surrey also adapted Italian Petrarchan conventions, such as the idealized beloved, the sighing lover, and love as warfare. He infused these themes with courtly grace and polish, making his diction smoother and more classical compared to Wyatt's. He developed the three-quatrain plus couplet structure, what we now call the Shakespearean sonnet form, which became a major formal legacy in English poetry. Furthermore, Surrey invented English blank verse, unrhymed iambic pentameter, through his translations of Virgil's Aeneid. This was a groundbreaking technical innovation that significantly shaped English literary history. Although Surrey contributed fewer poems than Wyatt, his name appeared first on the title page of their anthology, thanks to his aristocratic rank, which helped give the collection credibility. Sadly, he died on the scaffold at just 30 years old. In summary, Surrey, around 1516 to 1547, was an innovator, aristocrat, and a key figure in shaping early English poetry and the miscellany. So, on this slide, we're taking a closer look inside the pages of the miscellany, focusing on its structure and contents. As you can see, this part of the presentation is key to understanding how the miscellany is organized and what kind of material it includes. We'll explore the main sections and how they come together to give us a comprehensive view of the subject. The structure is designed to be both logical and engaging, helping us navigate through the diverse content effectively. By understanding these key points, we can better appreciate how the miscellany functions as a valuable resource. Remember, the overall theme here is about uncovering the layers within this collection and seeing how each part contributes to the bigger picture. On this slide, we're looking at how Tottel approached editing the poems in his famous anthology. He added titles to the poems, since the originals often didn't have any, making it easier for readers to identify each piece. He also smoothed out irregular meter, giving the poems a more consistent rhythm, which would have made them more enjoyable to read aloud. Additionally, he arranged the poems by author groups, creating a sense of order from what was originally a scattered collection of manuscript verse. Moving on, Tottel's editorial choices reveal his intention to shape the collection. For example, Surrey's translations of Virgil and Wyatt's Psalms highlight the humanist side of the anthology, showing how English poets were engaging deeply with classical and biblical traditions. Next, you'll notice that several poems serve as mourning or complaint poetry, poems that lament lost friends or express personal misfortune. Surrey's elegy on Wyatt stands out as particularly moving, illustrating how personal grief was a significant theme in the collection. You also see a variety of verse forms beyond the sonnet: ballads, rondos, ottava rima, and Poulter's measure, which alternates between lines of 12 and 14 syllables. This diversity reflects the wide range of Tudor verse forms, showing the richness of poetic expression at the time. Most of the 310 poems are love lyrics, sonnets, songs, complaints about unrequited love, the cruelty of a mistress, or the pain of separation. Love was clearly the dominant theme, capturing the emotional intensity of the period's poetry. And lastly, the title page of the anthology promised readers poems by Surrey, Wyatt, and others. This was a way to give the collection aristocratic credibility, while also leaving room for a broad variety of verse. It set expectations that this was a significant, diverse collection of contemporary poetry. So overall, this slide gives us a glimpse into what readers encountered inside the 1557 anthology, an expertly curated and carefully organized collection that reflected both the poetic styles and the cultural values of the time. Now, let's take a closer look at the innovations that the miscellany introduced, particularly in terms of themes and poetic forms. These innovations were quite significant because they expanded the ways poets could express ideas and emotions. By experimenting with different themes, the miscellany allowed for a broader range of subject matter, making poetry more accessible and varied. Additionally, the development of new poetic forms provided fresh structures for poetic expression, encouraging creativity and originality. These advancements didn't just enhance individual works, they also contributed to the overall evolution of poetic tradition. So, in essence, the miscellany's innovations in themes and poetic forms played a crucial role in shaping the future of poetry, reflecting a move towards greater experimentation and diversity. Let's take a look at some key poetic forms and their significance during this period. First, there's the English sonnet, especially Surrey's version, which consists of 14 lines arranged in 3 quatrains followed by a couplet, with the rhyme scheme ABAB-CD-CD, EFEFGG. This structure became a staple for exploring love and beauty. Surrey also used blank verse, which is unrhymed iambic pentameter. This was notably used in his translation of Virgil, giving a more natural yet elevated rhythm to the poetry. Moving on, the Petrarchan sonnet, popularized by Wyatt, adapts the Italian octave and sestet structure to English, often emphasizing a shift or volta between the two parts, usually from problem to resolution or from longing to acceptance. Wyatt also experimented with Poulter's measure, a form featuring alternating lines of 12 and 14 syllables, which gained popularity in the mid-century for its musical quality. The rondo is another interesting form, originally French, with a repeated refrain that emphasizes its lyrical and musical qualities. Wyatt also contributed by creating the envoy, a short concluding stanza that either wraps up or provides an ironic twist to the poem. Now, beyond the forms themselves, these poets introduced some poetic innovations. For example, they often depicted unrequited love, where the beloved is cold, cruel, or simply unattainable, highlighting the pain and longing involved. They also portrayed love as a kind of warfare, where the lover is besieged, wounded, or even enslaved by beauty. Themes of time and change are central too. Poets reflected on the fleeting nature of beauty, youth, and earthly pleasures. Many poems also explore exile and imprisonment, mirroring the dangers of court life or personal confinement. A fascinating paradox appears in love itself, the blend of pleasure and pain, hope and despair, showing how closely these feelings are intertwined. Nature often serves as a mirror in these poems: seasons, weather, landscapes, reflecting the lover's emotional state. Finally, understanding what made Tottel's miscellany revolutionary is crucial. It was one of the first collections to bring together a wide range of poems in accessible forms, making poetry more available and relatable to the public. It significantly influenced the development of English poetic expression, setting the stage for future generations. Now, let's turn our attention to the printer as a law publisher. In particular, Tottle's legal publications is a great example of how printers played a crucial role in shaping legal history. Tottle's, established in the 16th century, was one of the most influential legal publishers of its time. It wasn't just about printing books. It was about disseminating legal knowledge widely and making the law accessible. This shift from handwritten manuscripts to printed books marked a significant turning point, as it allowed for more consistent, accurate, and widely available legal texts. Tottle's publications helped standardize legal principles and made them more accessible to practitioners, students, and the public. So, in essence, printers like Tottel transformed the way law was shared and understood, reinforcing the idea that the printer was not just a passive publisher, but an active participant in the development and dissemination of legal knowledge. Let's take a closer look at Tottle's role in legal publishing. He printed editions of parliamentary statutes, which were official government publications that required royal approval. This wasn't just about printing. It was a mark of his status as a trusted royal printer, giving him a special standing. One of his key works was the Statutes of the Realm, a fundamental legal text that he printed repeatedly. These law books helped fund his literary projects, including the famous Miscellany, showing how legal and literary worlds were interconnected in his work. He also printed multiple editions of Littleton's Tenures, the standard textbook on English land law. This book was one of the most reprinted legal texts of the Tudor era, emphasizing how central it was to legal education and practice at the time. In addition, Tottel produced numerous yearbooks. These are annual records of legal cases and abridgments, which are digests of case law. These reference works were essential tools for lawyers and judges across England, helping them stay informed about legal precedents. A crucial point is that Tottel held a royal patent, granting him a monopoly on printing English common law books, especially under Edward VI. This monopoly gave him exclusive rights to print the most in-demand legal reference works, securing his position in the market. While the Miscellany made him famous in literary circles, his main business was legal publishing. Holding a royal patent for printing common law books provided a stable and lucrative foundation. This was the commercial bedrock of his entire enterprise. So, in summary, Tottel's legal publications weren't just a side business. They were the core of his success, connecting him directly to the legal establishment and royal authority. This strategic focus helped him maintain a dominant position in Tudor publishing. Now, let's take a closer look at Tottel's broader publishing career. Beyond his most famous work, he was involved in publishing many other materials that contributed to the literary culture of the time. This included a variety of publications that helped shape public readership and taste. He also worked closely with the Stationers' Company, which was essentially the guild that controlled publishing and printing rights during this period. This relationship gave him influence and access to a wide network of writers and printers, which was crucial for his success. Overall, these aspects of his career show that Tottel was not just a publisher of a single popular book, but a key figure in the broader landscape of early modern English publishing. His work helped facilitate the dissemination of literature and ideas, connecting him directly to the growth of English literary culture. Tottel showed that vernacular English poetry could actually be a successful business. This was a huge turning point because it proved that publishing in English could be profitable, and it really transformed the entire English publishing industry in the following decades. His shop sign, the Hand and Star, became quite famous in Fleet Street. He operated from there for over 35 years, making his shop one of the longest-standing Tudor printing establishments. It was a real hub for literary and printing activity during that time. Beyond his famous Miscellany, Tottel published all sorts of other literary works and translations. This helped expand the market for printed English literature, making books more accessible and encouraging a broader readership. He was also a member of the newly formed Stationers' Company, which was incorporated in 1557. Not only was he a member, but he served as its master multiple times, which was a very senior and influential position in the world of English publishing. His royal patent for law books was particularly valuable. It gave him a legal monopoly, and he protected this license fiercely, renewing it across multiple reigns. This was a major advantage, giving him exclusive rights to publish certain legal texts. Finally, Tottel published Surrey's pioneering translation of Virgil's Aeneid, specifically books II and IV. This was the first instance of blank verse in English, and it happened in the same year as the Miscellany. It shows how he was also at the forefront of literary innovation, not just commercial success. So let's talk about how Tottel's Miscellany truly changed the course of English literature. This collection was groundbreaking because it made poetry more accessible to a wider audience. By compiling popular and diverse poems in one volume, Tottel helped to elevate the status of English poetry beyond the courtly and elite circles. It also encouraged new writers to experiment and express themselves more freely. The influence of this miscellany can still be seen today, as it set the stage for future anthologies and helped establish English poetry as a vital part of literary culture. Ultimately, Tottel's work didn't just preserve poetry, it propelled it forward and made it a vital part of the national identity. Tottel's greatest cultural achievement was transforming private, courtly verse into publicly available printed books. This move towards democratizing poetry, shifting it from exclusive court settings to the marketplace, permanently changed the landscape of English literary culture. It made poetry accessible to a broader audience and reshaped how literature was shared and consumed. In Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor around 1597, there's a line where Slender says, "I had rather than 40 shillings I had my book of songs and sonnets here." This is a clear nod to Tottel's Miscellany, which was still widely circulated at the time. It shows how influential Tottel's anthology had become in popular culture. Tottel was a pioneer in creating printed poetry anthologies. His miscellany inspired many imitators like the Paradise of Dainty Devices in 1576, A Gorgeous Gallery in 1578, and England's Helicon in 1600. These collections helped establish a new publishing genre, making poetry something you could buy, read, and enjoy outside the courtly circles. This anthology genre also played a key role in shaping the form of English Renaissance drama. Surrey's invention of blank verse, which Tottel publicized, became the dominant meter for plays. Both Marlowe and Shakespeare wrote their works in blank verse, which Surrey had helped popularize. This was a major step in developing the language and rhythm of English drama. The Miscellany also introduced the sonnet to a broad English readership. It set the conventions that Sidney, Spenser, and Shakespeare would later perfect in their own works during the 1580s and 90s. Without Tottel's influence, we might not have the rich sonnet tradition we cherish today. There would be no Astrophil and Stella, no Fairy Queen, no Shakespeare's sonnets. And of course, we can't forget the long shadow cast by June 5, 1557. That date marked the publication of Tottel's Miscellany, a milestone that profoundly influenced the development of English poetry and drama. Its legacy and influence continue to shape our literary landscape even now. In this final slide, I want to emphasize the lasting impact of Richard Tottel's work. His main goal, as stated on the title page of the Miscellany, was to profit the readers. And he certainly succeeded in that. Remember, Tottel was not a poet himself, but a printer and publisher from Fleet Street, whose genius lay in his editorial and commercial skills. His 1557 publication, The Miscellany, was groundbreaking as the first printed anthology of English lyric poetry, featuring 310 poems in its initial edition. This collection introduced key poetic forms to the English audience, like the sonnet, blank verse, and Petrarchan love poetry, shaping the future of English literature. Two of its most prominent poets were Sir Thomas Wyatt, with 97 poems, and Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, with 40. Surrey's invention of blank verse, which Tottel published, became the foundation for the works of Shakespeare and Marlowe, influencing generations of writers. The Miscellany was incredibly popular, running to at least 9 editions by 1587, and it played a crucial role in inspiring the entire English Renaissance lyric tradition. So, in essence, Tottel's work was not just about publishing poetry. It was about shaping the future of English literature and connecting readers with new poetic forms that would endure for centuries.